live now, Camille. It's an amazing pleasure for me to finally talk like semi-business with you. It's like instead of all the chit chats that we're having, we're gonna talk about the real stuff that you actually do. And I'm very much excited. So, welcome everybody. Everybody who's in the chat, feel free to be loud, have questions and everything. We're looking forward to any crazy questions that you might think of.
I'm just on my first coffee, so go easy on me, though.
It's like, it's not on me, it's on the audience and everybody. So, Camille, welcome. Who are you?
Okay, so I am Camille. I run an agency called 42. I was in-house in a demand gen and growth and marketing ops role at different tech startups in Toronto, Montreal area for the last decade or so. And now we help B2B companies with demand gen, marketing ops, and sales ops. Get the Metal Express.
Come on. He'll get there. Just wait.
Yeah, I'm working on my team.
Have to come with the right questions, and Camille will get going very soon. Be careful, okay? Yeah. So, and what type of clients are you usually working with? So we know what type of clients you're usually.
Yeah. Post Series A, they have a marketing team of at least 4 or 5 people. So like we don't do content, we don't do product marketing. We're pretty niche in terms of what we do. So you have to have those foundations in place and maybe like some degree of success. And then we sort of come in to help you scale up or just build the foundation. I'll use here too. Nice. Yeah.
Very cool.
Familiar faces.
And the reason I'm so excited to talk with Camille is that, well, if you're following him on LinkedIn, you should be, because once in a while there are golden nuggets coming out. Okay, this man has something to say, but it sounds like he's saying that like half the reality that actually is in his mind. So let's try to unpack that a little later. But today's session will be focused on very tactical advices. We discussed what should we talk about with Camille. Well, the interesting thing is what you all people following can get the best out from the tactical advices that Camille is giving to his clients. And we're going to talk about Facebook ads for B2Bs, what works on Twitter, LinkedIn, crazy expensive, how do I get the best ROI, Google display ads. These are the 4 key topics that we have right now. And feel free to post in what other questions you might have in terms of tactical advices for paid social for yourselves, ROI, whatever it might be. We're going to pick them up. But I promised our follower to start this conversation about the story of demand generation. Camille, where does it come from?
So I don't know exactly where it comes from, but I think it started out when Aaron Ross wrote the book Predictable Revenue when he was at Salesforce. And I think that's what sort of kicked out the movement of demand gen, because when you look at TikTok, I can go talk about TikTok too. Well, I think it started with there because they had the model of selling enterprise software. They had BDRs, SDRs, and marketing's job was to bring qualified leads into the pipeline. I think it has evolved since then to be more downstream to all the way to revenue, which I don't think it was initially. But what's interesting, and this might be a bit of a sidebar, is I think it's making a sort of a comeback right now because a lot of people were frustrated by, I think a lot of marketing teams were frustrated by more leads, and now it's sort of having a moment again. But then there's also like growth marketing, and there's also like digital marketing, and there's also inbound marketing, and there's also, so to me, they sort of all mean the same thing. I think like in marketing, there's 3 main pillars. There's brand, there's acquisition, demand gen, growth, and then there's comms and PR. And I think a lot of B2B companies are like focused on the acquisition side and not. So I think like acquisition is like one of the pillars. You can call it demand gen, you can call it growth marketing, you can call it inbound marketing, you can call it, I don't know, revenue marketing, whatever it is. I think at the end of the day, demand gen is like marketing, generating pipeline revenue. And to me, what might be which is not a popular thing I see, is like, for me, demand gen also includes content and marketing ops. So it's not just SEO. Like I think a lot of common definitions of demand gen are just about paid media. But for me, when I was like doing this in-house, It was like marketing, like I feel like marketing ops, sales, marketing ops, content, and paid and SEO sort of all feed into the demand gen engine.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack, because when you're saying that demand generation possibly was born from predictive revenue, that's where we were talking about like leads, almost leads list that you can calculate, you can go
Yeah,
further, you can
yeah,
quantify, and so on. But nowadays we hear people talking about, oh, demand generation is something you cannot quantify. It's coming because people know about your brand. And that's where I'm dipping my toes into. You put the two pillars, and you're
yeah.
saying that brand is in another pillar than demand generation is. Explain that.
Yes. Okay. So I like to think about it as time horizons. So I think, okay, let me take a step back. I think a lot of people define demand gen as strictly being direct response. I don't think that is true. I don't think demand gen is like demand gen, like a lot of teams where you structure the marketing team, demand gen, events, content, all this stuff reports into demand gen. So
Uh-huh.
it's not just like running direct response ads on, Google search or whatever. But I think what people talk about now as demand gen being, I don't know, ungating your content and like letting people consume, I think that is more brand marketing, and that's been around for decades and it's not fundamentally new. I think we still need to differentiate between demand gen and brand.
Yeah.
And the difference to me is it's about time horizons. If I'm a business and my time horizon is 3 months and I need to hit certain revenue targets, I'm going to over index on more on the direct response stuff, which is fine. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything bad about generating leads, because qualified leads are a unit of revenue. Like
Uh-huh.
revenue just doesn't happen out of thin air. It has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think the definitions have become muddled up, because I think the definition of a lead and an MQL got bastardized in the process. And a lead or MQL is somebody who's interested in a product or service,
Yeah.
and they're likely to buy it at some point. Now you run them through the sales process, blah blah. But again, now going back to the second pillar, if my time horizon is, I don't know, 6 years, and I'm educating the market, that's more brand marketing to me. So it depends on what your time horizons for the business and your goals are. And I think the key to running a successful business is doing both,
Uh-huh.
because you need to capture the people who are actively in market looking for your solution, but you also need to educate the broader market about your solution, because if people don't know you exist, how are they going to buy from you?
Yeah.
So I think it's about balancing those two pillars, and comms is the third pillar, which I'm like not that's not my area of expertise. I haven't been exposed to it, but like comms is the third pillar that's very critical to it, because you need internal comms and external comms, like PR and placements and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's like dark social. But I think it's like people think demand gen is something like, what they're defining as demand gen now is what is brand marketing, and it's been around for decades, and it's not fundamentally new. And the reality is you need to do both.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And well, I think I'm still a little bit confused by the terms because I'm so new in marketing. But what I hear people saying is that, well, brand and demand gen is put into the same bucket, and you're moving it over to more to demand capture part, the part that you can definitely quantify and are able to calculate. Well,
Yeah,
revenue doesn't come from nowhere. Well, brand possibly is coming from nowhere because you're generating and building it.
brand. I think you can measure brand as well. Brand is just measured in a different way over a different time.
Uh-huh.
So I think I think it's unfair to say that you can't measure brand. I think you can measure anything given it. Like you can directionally measure brand. You can do brand recall surveys. You can do, is my branded search going up on Google Search Console? Very
Mm-hmm.
tactical. Everybody, my branded search on Google Search Console is going up. That means people are more aware of my brand. So I
Yeah.
think I think it's a fallacy to say that you shouldn't measure anything. I think it's a fallacy to say you can't measure brand. I
Mm-hmm.
think you can. It's just different frameworks to measure different things.
Cool. Okay. I'm not going to dig more here because we've got 30, we can go over time, but we've got 30 minutes. So let's get into the tactical advices, and then we can take up other questions in terms of this high level discussion. I love it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
let's
Okay.
move on. Yeah. Okay. So we agreed to start with which ads are best to run and when in the funnel.
Yeah. So typically in our engagement, we always start with paid search, because that's a low hanging fruit. you have people, if you're selling super enterprise, super niche. So like an example is we were working with a customer who was selling to airlines. There's only 500 airlines they could sell to. Their target market was really small. The executives of the airlines weren't searching for that solution because they already had a status quo, and it was kind of like, so we took a very different approach. But typically, if you're like selling into a mature category, and I don't recommend creating your own category, and we can talk about that later. But if you're selling to a mature category, there's probably some existing search volume you can tap into very tactically. Just start with Google search ads. They're more bottom of the funnel. They are higher, lower time to revenue. They're higher intent people. They're more like, start with your competitors. Start with known industry terms. Just like start there. And then from there, once you get that nailed down and you build appropriate landing pages, and we can go into the whole discussion on like what's a Google search structure and all that stuff. But once you have that running, then you start moving up funnel. So you go to, okay, these are people who are fit my ICP, are in my target market, but are not actively looking for a solution. That's where paid social comes in. That's where display comes in. Display can also be like, let me say remarketing is also part of the bottom of the funnel stuff, because people are coming, they're looking at your pricing page, they look at your website, so you can like retarget them. But then you're moving more up funnel to like mid funnel stuff, which is more LinkedIn, Facebook, yada yada, where people are not actively searching for something. So you're interrupting them to say, hey, I think you look like somebody I might be like, somebody who likes what I'm selling. You look like my ideal customer. Did you know that XYZ is easy? Or here's something that might be interesting for you.
Yeah.
And then you go slowly more up funnel and do more prospecting stuff. So that's your broader target market of people who might not be in market, who might not be problem aware or solution aware, but you're trying to get them to get your brand in front of them. And
What
that's
type
where
of
I
ads
think
would you use there?
I would use display. I would still use paid social, but like different objective. So
Okay.
I wouldn't, maybe not direct response type, but maybe more like I want them to, come to my blog and read some nice blog post I've written, or video views or something like that. More like in platform native consumption stuff, or like top of funnel ungated content, website videos, customer stories, whatever, product marketing pieces.
Understand. All right. Very cool. People in the comments, feel free to ask questions that might be relevant for your business, how you use it, share your knowledge so we can adhere to that and get Camille's response on it. So now, when you're talking about the tactical advices for paid social, you place paid social in the middle or the top of funnel, right?
On the bottom too, sorry. On the bottom too, but I would start with paid. If I'm starting with something, I would start with paid search on bottom of the funnel.
Okay.
And then I would layer on paid social on the bottom. Like paid social, I think can play in all three areas, because you can hit people. Like for example, I have a bunch of recycled leads in my CRM. I can upload them as a custom audience. I know they were a good fit, but at that time they were not ready to buy. So I can hit them again with more of a maybe demo, trial, whatever, offer, with the right kind of messaging. So yeah, I should have clarified that. So I think paid social plays in all three. I think paid search can potentially play in all three, but I think for paid search, it's more economical to like leverage SEO for more top of the funnel stuff, because you don't want to be paying like, I don't know, an average cost per click is, I don't know, $5 or whatever. So you don't want to be paying that money for potentially what is more top of the funnel, lower intent stuff.
Yeah. I got it. Understand. Okay. So if we move on to the specific platforms, okay, we say paid social, and then let's talk about Facebook to start with. Does Facebook work for B2Bs
Yes.
at all?
Yes.
How?
It absolutely does, because like the analogy that I use is there's a billion people on Facebook, and I'm pretty sure like some of them are your actual buyers. And Facebook also includes Instagram and like third-party placements and all that. And like we actually, I'm gonna write an essay about this at some point. But we did a marketing mix model for one of our customers who was heavily indexed on paid search, and we also ran some Facebook for them, and we saw some success with Facebook. And when we looked at the data and we modeled it out, it actually turns out that AdWords is pretty strong correlation to like qualified leads and revenue. But when we add Facebook to the mix, the correlation even gets higher. So our assumption right now is that Facebook was generating a lot of the awareness in the channel, and they were actually converting, but it was AdWords. Maybe they're coming in and like clicking on the branded search term at the end of the day. And that's why AdWords in the CRM, we were showing AdWords for a lot of them. But when we looked at the data and like we modeled it out, it actually showed that Facebook had a pretty good correlation to like revenue, but it wasn't being reflected in the CRM data because it might have not been the last touch source it came through.
Interesting. And
the other thing about Facebook,
Go ahead. No.
The other thing about Facebook is that they have a really good custom audience engine and a lookalike engine. So if you have a list of, I don't know, 200 customers already, and you can build lookalikes off of that, so it can Facebook can say, you can tell Facebook, here's my best fit customers, go find more people who match this kind of demographics and interest, and Facebook can then build on top of that. So this is like Facebook's lookalike engine is way better than, or custom audiences are way better than LinkedIn. The cost and economies of scale are better on Facebook. It's low cost. They have more placements. So on LinkedIn, for example, you're only the LinkedIn app or some third party website. But Facebook has Instagram, Reels, Stories, third party websites, apps, like so many different places that people can see a Facebook ad. So it has more surface area to cover those things. And just because of the scale of the platform.
Very interesting. That's you wouldn't expect that much. And we've got a question about Facebook. Let's pull it out. Look, what type of ads you will use in Facebook if your company is an early stage and ads may be the first touch to customer?
What type of ads would I use? I would use top of funnel educational ads, maybe just use some video ads. So maybe you have a product walkthrough video, or maybe what I've also seen work well is just a Loom video, like somebody talking to the camera and being like, hey, those talking head videos. It doesn't have to be a highly produced, product explainer video. It could be like a lo-fi video of like just me and you talk. Like this video right now that we're talking right now, this could be a Facebook video for us, Facebook ad for us. So I think it's like, because Facebook also, the advantage of video ads is you can remarket by what percentage of people watch the video. So like, it's cheaper to get a video view than a click to a website. So especially if you're first starting out, just building awareness about your product, it's easier to run video ads because they're more cost effective.
Interesting. And Matt has a question about a very interesting one that
touches I love that question.
Attribution. It goes into how do you map, because people on
Facebook. So there's the Clearbit stuff, there's a metadata stuff, but also I think if you provide them the phone numbers, maybe get the IDs, maybe get the geolocation, it's not just email, it has multiple data points that it matches with. So if you can enrich the people's profile with their email, even if it's a work email, but you have their first name, last name, phone number, location, blah, 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 it has a pretty good, reasonable match rate. Now, Facebook has taken out the match rates from custom audiences, so you can't exactly see what percentage of your custom audience match to what percentage of people on Facebook. But I've seen reasonable amount of success with that without tapping into like something like a Clearbit or something. Because I don't think Clearbit or metadata makes sense unless you're spending like 20, 30K a month on Facebook.
Yeah. Interesting.
Matt, I hope that answers your question. I'm waiting for my espresso.
We're gonna get the next one. All right. If there are no more additional questions for Facebook, we're like kind of rolling very fast throughout the tactical advices. And by the way, if you feel that any of the topics we're running through are interesting to dig deep into, we're happy to do another session with Camille as well on an example of something else, like TikTok, Matt. I'm not going to touch that one today, but we can touch it another time.
Matt, I can tell you I ran some TikTok ads and I got a cheaper CPM than any other channel I've seen. And that was for B2B, like for our agency. So take that for what it's worth.
There you go. You can always have a chat with Camille about that, or we can have another session. Okay. Can you give us some examples of good Twitter ads? How should we add?
Yeah. So we have an essay coming out about this. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe to 42slash.com. We have an essay coming out about Twitter ads. But I think Twitter ads get a bad rep because Twitter's ad platform is not the strongest. There's a lot of bots on it. But it's great for top of the funnel, real time. Like if you're going to an event, if you're going to there's a popular hashtag, you can attach your ad to that. Very tactically run ads from your personal handle versus your brand handle, because I've spent quite a bit of money on Twitter ads and I always see a higher click-through rate on my personal handle than my brand, like 42 agency versus Common Rexton. Common Rexton also outperforms in terms of engagement and numbers and all that stuff. And then the other thing is use follower lookalikes, but keep your audience reasonably in the middle. So you don't want an audience so big that gets so diluted that frequency matters. So one of my other things, this is completely a sidebar, but I think performance ads can also build brand just by virtue of repetition and people seeing your brand over and over again. So I think frequency matters. So if your audience is too big, your reach is going to get diluted and you're not going to get that repetition, like long-term exposure effect. And the other thing is take an organic tweet that got a lot of engagement and then promote that as an ad versus creating a ad. But I say that with a bit of a sidebar that I ran a carousel ad yesterday on Twitter for our newsletter subscribers, and all of a sudden it started like generating a lot of subscribers. So take that for what it's worth. It wasn't an organic tweak. I just created an ad from my personal brand account, and like it started performing really well. It was a carousel ad of like different essays we have written. But I think with Twitter, it's interesting because it's sort of the middle ground between a brand engine like Facebook, which knows who people are, and an intent engine like Twitter, like Google, because people also type into Twitter, does anybody know XYZ? Like they will ask their peers for recommendations, and you can tap into those keywords and run ads against them. So like hashtag marketing Twitter, for example, hashtag, like whatever that is. So I think it's like an interesting mix between, I can target by, if people follow Laura on Twitter, they're probably in marketing and B2B marketing. I can target your followers, but I can also say if people are tweeting about B2B attribution, I can target those people specifically. So it's interesting. Like it's an interesting mix. Their attribution sucks. Their conversion tracking sucks. Their ad platform is not the greatest. So like take that. So I treat it more as a brand affinity channel. So like you just want to show up in relevant conversations and build affinity towards your brand versus like trying to get a conversion out of it.
Really interesting.
And brand affinity is something I borrowed from Wistia, by the way. So I want to give them credit for that.
Good. That's good. Any questions about Twitter ads? People, I'm just gonna check it out. No, it doesn't seem so. All right, let's move on to the expensive stuff. LinkedIn for B2B. Yeah. How do you get the best ROI?
So we've seen in-feed ads work well when we do like there's product interests on LinkedIn, so we can target about specific product interests. So I think we've seen interesting results with that. You can obviously do the job titles and stuff. We've seen interesting results with custom audiences, lookalike audiences. We've seen interesting results with video ads and conversational in-feed, whatever the in-mail ads. I think with LinkedIn, like you have to go in knowing that the platform is going to be more expensive. So like if your ACV is not higher than, let's say, if your ACV is lower than 10K, 12K a month, 12K a year, I would not go with LinkedIn because an average cost per qualified lead is like 2, 3, 400, 500, something like that. You can get that lower. Like we've seen lower, like we've seen as low as like $80 a qualified lead, but that's like, it's some of it is dumb luck, some of it is like us like working the platform. But there's certain, like you need an audience size good enough, like LinkedIn and also Facebook right now. The bigger the audience sizes are, the bigger the daily budgets are, the better it works, because the algorithm has more data to optimize against. Versus I think the people make the mistake on Facebook as well as LinkedIn, they try to discrete out their audiences into very small. Oh, like marketing directors are going to be this, CEO is going to be this ad group. I say combine them all into one, because the more discrete your ad groups are, the less you have to, like, it's better if I spend $500 a day against one set of people versus $50 a day against so many different sets of people.
And it sounds like Matt.
Matt, I agree with you. Yeah. And then because LinkedIn, yes, I would actually say Facebook is cheaper than for net new CPL, but yes.
And there's another one that is interesting to have a chat about. What is the optimal audience size for LinkedIn?
I think it's 100K plus. Because if it's smaller than that, then you're better off betting on reach versus like conversions. So because if your audience is too small, your LinkedIn is only going to show your ad to people who are more likely to convert, and if your ad is too small, you're just going to saturate that audience really quickly. So it's better off to bet on like something like reach or awareness and engagement. But if your audience is like 100 plus, and Eugene, if you're on the call, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like 100, or there's a certain range I think it's 100K. But then you have enough audience for the platform to optimize against.
Cool. One more. You ready?
What type of underperforming bus can we do? We do in app. We do lead forms plus landing pages. Lead forms tend to convert better at a cheaper price, but it could be like the one downside is that you get people's personal emails, and I know a lot of sales people hate personal emails. So the way we sort of work around that is we pull in their LinkedIn profile URL with that,
Uh-huh.
so that it's another data point. And then what types of ads are performing best? We see illustrations on LinkedIn performing better right now. We're
Mhm.
also trying some animated ads as well to see how that works, and also video ads. If you have like a webinar or something, you chop that into a 30-second clip. I think that performs well. Plus, with LinkedIn, you can do single image retargeting. So if somebody liked or commented on one of your ads, you can retarget to them. So that's an interesting thing that LinkedIn basically
Mhm.
rolled out. You can do the product into stuff, conversational marketing, conversational ads, which are like a kind of a cliche right now because everybody's giving out $100 gift cards for a demo, but they do work. So I'm like, I personally may not agree with it, but they work. So the results speak for themselves.
Interesting. Uh-huh.
Like I
Cool.
made a joke the other day. I was like, SaaS marketing has become like $100 gift cards for demos. Just like everybody's like, hey, here's $100 gift card. Can you take my demo?
Does it work at all? The
It
gift
works.
and stuff.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
always saw that like seen that so cheesy and like okay,
It
how? It's
works.
like really?
I think it just people feel valued for their time. So like they yes, there's obviously a downside of like I'm not a qualified buyer for like some enterprise software. I might be like I want $100 gift card, so you need to keep
Yeah.
retargeting, and like Matt said, you need to have your exclusions very tight because LinkedIn can like you might be targeting job titles by I don't know marketing, and
Uh-huh.
LinkedIn will also include biz dev and operations and stuff. So you need to look at the
Right.
segments and just exclude people so that your targeting is very tight. I think exclusions are very critical on LinkedIn, but if your exclusions are tight and your audience is okay, or you're doing a very specific custom audience and you've disabled like audience expansion for these kind of ads, then it works. Like we've seen it work well. So
But
I
on which funnel part? I mean, when I'm thinking about like that, people would say, okay, yeah, give me $100 gift card.
like remarketing. Like think about remarketing. Like somebody's coming to your site, they bounce around on LinkedIn. You're running a remarketing. You have the
Uh-huh.
remarketing audience. With that, you filter it down by maybe seniority, job titles, exclude any students, interns, irrelevant people. So
Uh-huh.
you get that remarketing audience. Plus, you're saying out of this remarketing audience, just send it to people who match this very specific demographic,
Uh-huh.
and then that $100 gift card works really well.
Okay. Well, I would like to try to sell to those people and see what is the quality of those
I
leads.
think
But
it would be funny if
I'm still
if you get a
skeptical.
message for $100 gift card and you're like, you know what? I'll give you a $200 gift card if you take my demo right now and
Yeah,
see what
yeah,
happens.
yeah. Exactly. It's like pitch it back and I'll show you either those are converting or not. It's like
Yeah.
happy to revenue. Want to do that? It's like let's exchange. I'll top it up. There you go.
Very
All
timely
right.
question on very timely question. Facebook just rolled out some B2B segments. So if how do I pull this in? I don't know
I
how to
can
pull
pull that out for you. This
it.
one. There it goes. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on the
So
B2B segments?
I think it's Facebook actually had this before the whole Cambridge Analytica stuff. I'm pretty optimistic about it, but I will say this that we also use a lot of third party audiences from platforms like LiveRamp. So if you are running B2B on Facebook, I think like definitely explore the new B2B audiences. I think they're gonna work pretty well because Facebook is pretty good with the data stuff, but also like don't discount third party audiences from LiveRamp, LeadSafe, or like your own CRM database lookalikes, custom audiences, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah, hopefully it does.
Good stuff. Everybody on the line, whoever needs to jump, please leave your comment. What topic would you like Camille to dig in deeper at another session at another point? We will be happy to run it, but there is still one point we haven't discussed. So we will continue, but whoever needs to jump, please give us a comment. What should we run as a next session if we were to go deep? Well, maybe that's TikTok. We'll see. All right. Uh, one more thing was we spoke about how to measure impact on pipeline of Google display ads. This one is interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So okay, I will like. So Google Display is tricky. A lot of people say Google Display doesn't work. I think it's because it might not work for a first touch. Like same with YouTube. So I'll say YouTube and display. I'll bundle that into one. But what's interesting is sometimes we look at, like, even without something like a Dream Data or Visible, uh, whatever have you, I think if you look at your Google Analytics, multi-channel funnels, and Google attribution tools, Eugene, the you can see, you can take the path people take, and a lot of times in our work that we do, we see Google Display as one of the things that led them to the conversion, but it was not the first or the last thing. It was somewhere in the middle. So it might be a remarketing ad. The remarketing ad pushes them to something else, and they might convert off something else. So I think look at it that way instead of like trying to measure direct conversions off of it. Also look at it as an awareness channel, because in Google Display you can create custom intent audiences or people who are searching for your competitors on search. You can retarget them on display, or going to websites or Gmails or whatever. They're getting, they're going to a competitor's website or going to some industry publication that talks about, I can talk about keywords on content. I can do a lot of flexibility, and the reach of display is much, much higher than, because on search you're limited to how many people are searching for a given thing at any given time. But with Google Display, your reach can be much, much wider, and with much wider reach, you can create more awareness, but you can also like influence the journey to a conversion.
Interesting.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, it absolutely does. It does. And does anybody have questions in terms of display ads? Any people disagreeing, because we've heard them not working that well and people would like to avoid using them as well. So feel free to chime into the discussion of Google Display ads as well. And I really like Eugene's point as well. We should have a session about like cookieless world. What's coming? It's like,
I have a whole deck on it, so I can go through the whole deck for you.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're hearing that story. It's like there was a story in Danish that say the wolf is coming, everybody's shouting, but the last time when it's actually coming, nobody's looking. So we have heard it's coming so many times that nobody trusts this anymore, but people are still talking about it. We should pick up the topic of like and what's really cool.
Yes, I have a lot of thought on that too.
Is there anything we missed out on talking, Camille, before we finish off the session today?
I mean, I could talk about a lot of things, but no, I don't think so. I think the important thing is on paid social, creative is often undervalued. I think beyond targeting and how good your targeting and exclusions are, I think your creative needs to be on point. And we do a lot of creative work for our clients, and we see this constantly, that the creative is one of the most impactful things we can do on paid social. So we do a lot of creative testing for our customers as well. We have a great in-house Alejandra, if you're on the call. She's fantastic. She's our art director. She does amazing work.
Right.
So I think creative is such an undervalued thing, especially for B2B. Like D2C marketers understand how important creative is, but B2B marketers don't. And I think we're seeing that shift towards it, especially with Facebook and LinkedIn and post-cookie iOS, whatever. I think creative is going to be more and more important. I'll do a quick thing about Performance Max. They can work well if you have a big enough TAM. I think if you're selling to a very niche audience, Performance Max can be a bit tricky to make work. But before you run Performance Max, make sure your conversion tracking is set up correctly. Otherwise, Performance Max will optimize for the wrong conversion, and you'll just be like, "What is happening? This happened to us." So yes. So Performance Max is Performance Max is interesting because it runs YouTube, Gmail, display, whatever. It has multiple things. You can do custom intent. It's sort of like subset of display ads.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a black box as well. So if it's kind of like dynamic search ads. So if your conversion tracking is like out of whack and you're like tracking the wrong conversions, or you have too many conversions in your AdWords account, and just optimize for like the wrong conversion. If, for example, if page view is set as a conversion in AdWords, it'll just optimize for page views, and that's not meaningful enough.
No.
So you need to make sure your conversion and your plumbing and your data is being passed through to your CRM, and all that stuff is set up right. And if I'll say just your TAM is big enough, Performance Max can work well. But if your TAM is smaller than this, it won't work so well.
All right. But I really like your point about creatives in B2Bs, because that's what we're seeing all the time. It's like the B2B ads are so boring. Anything that I'm targeted with is like, oh my God, it's not worthy of even looking at it. It's not even beautiful to look at. So if you can just stand out a little tiny bit on your social, I mean, it will work wonders, because you're selling to people. You're not selling to businesses or like even a big boss is on TikTok and on, I don't know, Twitter and Reddit and stuff.
I'll plug in ours. We have a new service launching for B2B performance creative. If you're interested, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn and I can tell you all about it. It just, we don't do the campaign management. We just like sliced off a creative as a service on its own.
Oh, very interesting. That's also a very cool topic to talk about the creatives
Yeah.
for B2Bs. Good point. Camille, where can people find you, reach you?
Twitter and LinkedIn. Twitter is Carmen Wexton. I'm very active on Twitter, and you can find me on LinkedIn. You can probably find me on LinkedIn for my this live stream thingy. But yeah.
Will do. Will do.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody, for the session today. And we're not going to stop here. We're going to have some more. See you.